What are you doing? No, really, why are you hiding yourself?
I don't want people to see me weird.
Why not show who you truly are? What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
If only it was that easy to be yourself. Unfortunately, it isn't, especially if you're autistic. Hiding autistic behaviors, or masking them, is often the only option that people with autism can use on a regular basis. This practice of masking can be harmful to someone's well-being, more so if done for long periods of time. As an autistic person, I can safely say from my own experience that any degree of masking is tiring, let alone for a whole day. In fact, this is what happens if I mask for the whole day. It's like trying to carry someone non-stop for a really long time. If you don't completely fold before the end, you'll be left completely exhausted.
Why is this masking thing so bad? And why do many autistics choose to do it anyway? What can we do about it as a society? Join me today as I look into masking in autistic people and how masking is bad for their well-being. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, the autism spectrum disorder is a neurological and developmental disorder that affects how people communicate, learn, behave, and interact with others. Autism is a type of neurodivergence, which means that your brain works differently compared to someone who isn't neurodivergent. Autism can also be diagnosed at any age, but is most commonly diagnosed during childhood, and can often occur with other mental health conditions such as anxiety or depression, or other neurodivergences like ADHD. Actually, I've been living my whole life with autism and ADHD.
Autism is also a condition that lasts forever and can't be cured. Don't feel so bad. The way to deal with autism isn't about curing it, but about coming up with strategies to reduce its effects. If you couldn't tell by the name, autism is a spectrum of various behaviors and can manifest in different ways, including repetitive body movements, or stimming, difficulty with communication, being easily overwhelmed by sensory items like light or sound, and having restricted and usually niche interests. Personally, I often find myself fidgeting in an attempt to keep focus on a task, usually with some part of my body.
I also have a pretty niche interest: public transit. Now let me ask you this. Can you tell that this guy's autistic? How about him? Or him? Or them? Alas, due to the various ways that autism can show up, or not, there is no one way to tell that someone is autistic. You might have seen an autistic person without even knowing it. This is something you should keep in mind when trying to understand and support autistic people.
The practice of masking, also known as social camouflaging or compensation, is when you try to hide the parts of yourself that others might see as weird. Some examples of masking include making up scripts for conversations, imitating the way other people talk or behave, and hiding your discomfort when feeling sensory overload. One motivation for masking is if you're trying to gain something of value, like a job offer. But the main motivations for masking comes down to trying to fit in with the normal of your surroundings, and avoiding rejection, stigma, and discrimination.
Masking is more common amongst autistics and neurodivergents who feel like they have no choice but to mask.
In the way our society is kind of set up, I feel like it's almost essential for most people with any kind of neurodivergence to mask. A lot of people kind of can notice if you're not masking because you're acting different. And I feel like definitely with like social hierarchies and stuff almost set up in society, it's very much like act normal or else you'll kind of get penalized for that. So yes, I would say I do mask pretty often.
You would say you would do it because you're in fear of getting discriminated against?
I guess so, yeah, because even if someone knows I have autism, a lot of the time they'll be like, oh, something's off. And even if they kind of like, if they know or if they don't know, they can't necessarily make that connection, and they just notice something is off, and then they're less willing to honestly do anything.
Why do you do it? Why?
Well, I guess it's just so I don't make a fool of myself. Like, around just those intimidating people, like, I've especially had, like, a history of, like, bullying from middle school. Yeah, I've been through it, and, like, just so I don't go through, like, anything like that, I sort of just have to, like, keep sort of habits to myself. Right. And, like, you know, not talk as much about, like, my weird interests and all. So, yeah, that's mostly it. I guess it comes more from bullying rather than, like, ADHD or any neurodivergence. But, you know, just stuff that I've picked up during middle school.
Without many choices, some people, including myself, end up masking for long periods of time, to the point where it just happens without a single thought. And I'm certain that masking on autopilot for long enough can screw up your identity. But how do you feel before, during, and after your masking?
I feel like before, it's not really much something I put in much thought into, because it's almost like I feel like I'm doing it consistently. If I'm leaving the house or even just interacting with people, I'm masking. You're kind of losing who you truly are as yourself, because the longer you do it, it's kind of like, are you your mask or are you yourself?
Can you really blame autistic people for masking? I mean, their social interaction isn't as simple as just being themselves and being in the moment. But rather, autistic people have to worry about appearing normal and not being made fun of, no matter how much they want to show their true selves. Even something as simple as one wrong movement will attract weird looks, or even worse, attract ridicule. Either way, the other people in the group will likely never see that one person the same again. Simply put, the average autistic person doesn't want to risk being heavily judged by others just to be themselves, so they'd rather mask to try and fit in with what is considered normal. This is a very harsh reality that autistic people and other neurodivergent people have to face on a regular basis. We've seen that autistic people feel obliged to mask, not wanting to look weird in front of other people. Unfortunately, masking comes at a cost. From anxiety to depression to faster exhaustion and burnout, masking can have a negative effect on someone's well-being and mental health.
Considering that anxiety and depression can impact a person's mood, sleep, and overall life quality, it wouldn't be good to combine them with autism and its sensory and social problems. With the easier burnout and exhaustion in the mix, these conditions combined can lead to poor performance in academics or in the workplace. Left untreated, this can potentially lead people to turn to substances, self-harm, or worse.
Moreover, masking can stop you from getting the support that you need for your autism. Someone who masks more often has a lower chance of getting an autism diagnosis compared to someone who doesn't. Without a diagnosis, you can't get support. Without support, you'll have less strategies to deal with autism. Without strategies, the effects on your workload and well-being will hit you harder, and that will get in the way of your school or workplace performance.
When this happens, your boss might shout at you for not meeting goals, or it can cause you to feel disappointment when you get a bad grade at school. The worst part? You probably put as much effort as you possibly could, and you're left wondering, why am I doing so bad? Oh, and that test results site still gives me nothing but bad feelings.
Surely, looking at bad results over and over can take a toll on your mental health. But it's even worse when you don't realize that it's undiagnosed autism or another neurodivergence. You might be blaming yourself for these bad results when in reality it's probably not your fault. We've already seen the mental health disaster that masking autism can cause, so without any support, you'll end up in a never-ending cycle of performing bad on something, then feeling bad because of that, then performing worse, then feeling worse, then performing worse, then feeling worse. This cycle simply isn't sustainable for anyone's mental health, let alone for an autistic person.
It's kind of like playing a video game while locked on the hardest difficulty, while your friends are on the easiest. Certainly, easy and hard aren't the same, and strategies on easy mode are not the same as strategies on hard mode. While your friends are beating the game with no sweat, you're going through pure struggle and pain, while using the same strategies as your friends. You probably don't realize that the strategies are different, and your friends certainly don't either. I can imagine that changing the difficulty in this game of life is very difficult, if not impossible. So the only thing you can do is to embrace and adapt to what you have, and get support if you need it. By doing this, you'll be able to perform closer to your full potential, and feel better about yourself as you learn to get by in this game of life.
Now, I've been going on about masking affecting mental health and well-being, and autistic people are forced to mask because of pressure. But what can we as a society do about this? Autistic people make up about 1% of the population, which means that many non-autistics don't bother to learn what it's truly like to be on the spectrum. This lack of knowledge can lead to misunderstandings, stigma, and discrimination, which will lead to more autistic people masking, which is bad. We need more autism education. Whether in the workplace, in your school, in this video, or through some cool social media infographics, more education on autism and neurodivergence will help people understand what being autistic truly means, which will help people see autism more positively and reduce stigma around it. Through doing this, autistic people will feel more understood by others, which will encourage them to mask less and to be more authentic to themselves. One thing to note is that it's important to involve autistic people when educating others to make sure that autism is accurately represented. Without it, the campaign wouldn't be any better than misinformation. Autistic people like to be around other autistic people. It gives them a sense of belonging. But what if they got to see autism in the limelight? It might just be in the workplace with your autistic boss, or seeing famous people with neurodivergences. Billie Eilish, Jacksepticeye, and Belly Ramsey, just to name a few. Many autistics have low self-esteem from masking, so seeing that autistic people can still achieve greatness might be the only difference between them masking and not masking. Surely to do all that, we would need good representation of neurodivergence in the workplace, the media, and the everywhere, and it'd be difficult to get there without dropping the stigma around autism first.
Finally, accommodating an autistic person's sensory and social needs while at work or school. Perhaps through a sensory-friendly workspace with features like dimmed lights and reduced noise, or allowing a more flexible schedule, or offering alternatives to social-oriented work such as presenting. Remember, autism can vary from person to person, so if you need to make accommodations for someone, you should work with them in finding the accommodations that help them the most.
In the case of my university, they give me extra time on tests and assignments, a separate workspace for tests, and some scrap paper for my rough work, because I find it helpful.
Ultimately, accommodating the needs of autistic people will help them worry less about their sensitivities, and help them focus and perform.
Now, I think that the research on masking and neurodivergence still has a long way to go from here. Like, how does masking affect ADHD or other neurodivergences? Is it different from autistic masking? Can your cultural background affect your masking experience? The questions go on, but I think that we have enough to understand that masking can have negative effects on autistic people. Maybe there are times that you do want to mask, maybe to keep others safe. But we have to remember the implications. One's on mental health and getting professional support. I think that a healthy society is a productive one where neurodivergents can perform at their best, and one where neurodivergents can just be themselves. But we can't get there unless everyone does their part. So, just be respectful, patient, and inclusive. And to my fellow neurodivergents, just be yourself.